All right, Shalom, Shalom, Israel. It's your brother Yazar Rock with WFI Jersey, Philly, giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Shema Mashiach Wamalek Yahweh Shai. That's to say Yahweh, who the world calls God, and Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Right, and as you see through the title of this video, it's going to be going into the stranger and the mixed multitude that you read about, chiefly in the Old Testament. This might be a refresher for some brothers, for the new brothers and sisters that might be coming into this truth, right? They might not have this breakdown, this understanding, right? That's why when you read, let me get a couple precepts before we get started. When you read 2 Timothy, because one of the things you're going to understand, and as I said, some brothers in this truth right now, one thing that you have to understand is breaking down strongholds, breaking down understandings, breaking down doctrine, right? That's one thing that you're going to have to do, because of course with this specific topic that we're going to be going into, a lot of people have various doctrines and understandings about who the strangers are, right? So we're going to get a few precepts through the Spirit and power of the Most High so we can break down those strongholds and give brothers and sisters the proper understanding. All right, let me get this in 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 15, right? The classic. It says, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth, right? So the Lord said you have to study, one, to show yourself approved. Men that you see go out there and teach, those men didn't just wake up and see the word black in the Bible and go out there and start teaching. Brothers are apt to teach. Brothers take years and years to understand and build themselves up in knowledge. And that comes to what? That comes to studying, right? It says rightly dividing the word of truth. So when you're battling or debating or discussing doctrine in general, especially when you're in this truth, you want to be able to rightly divide that word of truth. You don't want to get cut or confounded by a Christian or a Muslim, and now it looks like they know your doctrine or your understanding better than you, right? So you want to be able to go into the scriptures, and when topics like this are broken or used or brought out, you want to be able to break these things down as well, right? Let me get this second precept real quick, and then we're going to dive right into it. Right, let's go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 25. The book of Proverbs, chapter 25, and verse number 2. It says, it is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter, right? And we're nations of kings and priests, right? So we're supposed to be able to search these matters out. Search these things out. And then we live in the age of technology, the age of information. It's not hard to be able to go into this understanding and that understanding and break some things down. Of course, the Lord conceals certain things, prophecies and things that some men should know, and then other wise men are only going to know, right? You read that in the book of 2nd Ezra. Let me get that real quick. Some things are going to be sealed, and the wise are going to understand it, and other things are for all men to be up to understand. And of course, the Lord is going to seal or sear the mind is going to sear the mind of some people as a hot iron. So they're not going to be able to understand certain things. That's what you get a lot in Christianity. Their minds are seared with a hot iron. So when you break certain things down, they're not going to get it. Doesn't matter how many times you break it down, and you go into the blue letter and you bring out the definition, or you go to the context, and then you get a precept here and there, how the Bible is supposed to be read and broken down, they're just not going to get it. But as long as you're studying and you're rightly dividing the word of truth, you know what the truth is. And you got brothers and sisters that share the same understanding with you. That's what's going to stand at the end of time, right? Let's get this in 2nd Ezra chapter 14. I'm going to jump straight to the point. Verse 45. And it came to pass when the 40 days were fulfilled that the highest spake, saying, the first that thou hast written, publish openly. So I'm actually start back. I'm going to start at verse 43 so your brothers and sisters get the understanding. As for me, I spake in the day, and I held my tongue, and I held not my tongue by night. So when you read this entire account in 2nd Ezra 14, this is our forefather Ezra, right? He's telling you that the law is burnt, and those that are to come are not going to. He can go teach his own people; they'll understand. But those that are to come, they're not going to have any understanding. How are they going to know these things? So what Ezra did, the Lord sent His Holy Spirit upon Ezra, and they wrote the books. They're the ones that rewrote the doctrine. They're the ones that rewrote the law. This is post-Babylonian exile, when our temple and our laws were destroyed, and the law, the books were destroyed. So Ezra, through the spirit and power of the Most High, is in him and the men that the Lord has elected, They're rewriting these books, right? So again, 43, as for me, I spake in the day, and I held not my tongue by night. In 40 days, they wrote 204 books, right? And it came to pass when the 40 days were fulfilled that the highest spake, saying, the first that thou hast written, publish openly, that the worthy and unworthy may read it. But keep the 70 last, that thou mayest deliver them only to such as be wise among the people. And that's how it is even today. When it comes to certain doctrines, when it comes to certain breakdowns and understanding, everybody doesn't have that same understanding. Everybody can't go to 2nd Ezra 11 and break it, 11 and 12 and break it down. Everybody can't go to Daniel the 11th chapter and break it down, right? There's certain understanding that's made for certain people to be understood. Those are the books that is published openly. And then there's some that only the wise are going to understand, right? But those that are published openly, those are the things we have to go out there and teach, because it's going to be easy for people to understand and break down. Now, this is one of the things that's going to be relatively simple, but again, it's still controversial. It's still a debate. It's still understanding that certain people don't have about the strangers and the mixed multitude that came out of Egypt. So let's dive right into it. Right, we're going to touch on the stranger first, because one of the first places you're going to read about the stranger, you read about all throughout Genesis. Of course, in Exodus, when you read the 2nd chapter, Moses' son is named. His name actually means, we're going to read it, I have been a stranger in the land. Let's get this real quick. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 2. Salakia. And we'll go straight to verse number 22, if I'm not mistaken. I'll start with 21. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah his son. And she bare him a son, and called his name Gershom. For he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. So you're going to see the word stranger in multiple places before the actual understanding that we're about to break down, right? So let's get straight to it. So let's go to the book of Exodus chapter 12, because this is one of the main places that you're going to read about the stranger and how you can differentiate the one stranger from another stranger. I got some notes here. I got the blue letter pulled up, so we're going to go into some definitions. But I want to make a disclaimer that context supersedes definition, right? Context supersedes definitions. You can read the definition of a word in another place, but if you don't have the proper context, then you're going to read that out of context. You're going to read it with your own understanding. And we know the Lord said that not to lean on your own understanding, right? Let's get this in Exodus 12. We're going to go straight to verse number 43. It says, and the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. So we know this is the Israelites, chiefly the 12th chapter, where the Lord is giving the understanding of how to keep the Passover to Moses and Aaron. And that's going to be dispersed throughout the multitudes of the people prior to them leaving Egypt, right? It says, and the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof, but every manservant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then he shall eat thereof. So when the Lord said that no stranger shall eat thereof, we have to have the proper understanding of what he's saying right here. Right, which is an easy breakdown when you go into the blue letter and get the actual understanding of what he's saying. Let's go Exodus chapter 12 in the blue letter. And I wish I had this pulled up on the screen, but this is pre-recorded, so just bear with me. Exodus chapter 12 and verse number 43. We're going to go to the word stranger here. Now, this word stranger here is Nekar. It's spelled Nekar, right? Nekar. Now, this word Nekar it's an alien or a foreigner, right? So an alien, a foreigner, is somebody that's not of the 12 tribes of Israel. Somebody that's from another land, a Moabite, an Edomite, an Ishmaelite. That's a foreigner, right? One that's not from that land. The Lord said that they cannot eat of the Passover. Imagine, Salaki, does it make any sense? The Passover, we know, is commemorating the Most High God, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, delivering the Israelites from Egypt. So now how is an Egyptian, which would be a stranger, going to come keep the Passover? Why would they want to come keep the Passover? When it's literally commemorating the destruction of your people. The Lord said to the stranger, they can't eat of the Passover. So we understand that this word right here, nakar, is used generally or chiefly when you're talking about those of another nation, right? Let's go to Isaiah chapter 62. Because the Lord said, out of the mouth of one or two witnesses shall every matter be established. So we're going to go to the book of Isaiah chapter 62. And we're going to pull the same thing. So you have to understand that the stranger in this context where it's talking about a stranger cannot eat the Passover, this is a stranger that's not of the 12 tribes of Israel, because there's multiple understandings of the word stranger. You got to think about it. When you're going into the English language, if you say bat, the word bat can mean a baseball bat or it can mean an actual bat that flies. But if you go into another language, there might be two different words for that. So we have brothers and sisters understand that back in the day, we weren't speaking English. Everybody's speaking Hebrew. So there's multiple words for this word in the Hebrew, but in English, stranger just means stranger, right? Let me get this in Isaiah. Slakia, bear with me. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 62, and verse number 8. It says, the Lord has sworn by his right hand and by the arm of his strength. Surely I will give, Slakia, I will no more give thy corn to be meat for thy enemies, and the sons of the stranger shall not drink thy wine for the which thou hast labored. So even if you go down, Slakia, I wanted to get this is a good point too. This is a good point too, because we're going to get this, but I also wanted Isaiah 60 and 10. But we're going to go to, since we already here, let's go to Isaiah chapter 60, 62, and verse number 8. Slakia. Isaiah 62 and verse number 8, right? And we're going to pull this same word up in the blue letter. I know you all can't see it, but you know, if you got the blue letter Bible on your phone or on your tablet or whatever the case may be, you can pull the same thing up. This is the same word nakar, right? We understand that when the Lord delivers the children of Israel and brings them back into their homeland, what's going to happen? The strangers are no longer going to be the ones in our land, because we know that they are right now, according to Ezekiel 7 and 24, Luke 21 and 24, Revelation 2 and verse number 8, or I'm sorry, Revelation 2 and 9. So we have the understanding that the Israelites are not in their proper land, but the Lord's saying when he brings us back to our land, they're no longer going to be drinking our own wine. They're no longer going to be the ones that are in our land. The same thing when you read Isaiah chapter 60 and verse number 10, and the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. So we understand the stranger, the Israelites are not going to bring, Israelites in this day are not even going to be strangers, right? We're going to be brought back to the Most High, and we're going to be married to Yahweh Shai. We're not going to be strangers in that day, right? So this can't be talking about an Israelite. This can't be talking about an Israelite. That's considered a stranger. This has to be an actual stranger that's from another nation. Like I said, whether he's a Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Ishmaelite, whatever you want to call him, he would be a stranger. He would be defined by nakar, right? But and let me get one more actually. Let's go to the book of Nehemiah. So let's get the book of Nehemiah chapter 13. This is the book of Nehemiah chapter 13. And I'm going to start at verse, I want to get the context for this too. Yeah, let's start at 23. This is the book of Nehemiah chapter 13 and verse number 23. It says, in those days also saw I Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab, and their children spake half the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. Now, during the time of Nehemiah, this is when Israel was returning, right? This is post-Babylonian, and this is during the time of the Medo-Persian Empire, where Israel under Xerxes was allowed to return, right? This is when Nehemiah came back, which was around 444 BC. So when they returned, of course, the land chiefly, even when we were living there, are littered with heathen, But when our people came back, they started marrying different strange women, right? Which we're going to get to. Women of Moab, women of Ammon. And we know what the Lord said about Moab and Ammon as well. Let's get Deuteronomy 23 real quick. This is Deuteronomy chapter 23, and I'm going to get straight to the point. Verse number 3. An Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of Yahweh, even to the 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of Yahweh forever. So now our men, and I'm going to get another precept on it, our men start marrying those of the other nations. And the Lord already told you that we can't be marrying these different women, and a Moabite, a bastard, which is a Moabite and Ammonite, you read that in verse 2, they can't be brought into the congregation. All right, let me see if I can get this precept on you real quick. Bear with me. I believe this is 1 Ezra chapter 8. It's in this chapter. I would have to go find it. But even when you read 1 Ezra, all right, here it is, Slakia. This is 1 Ezra chapter 8, and I'm going to start at verse 68. Now when these things were done, the rulers came unto me and said, the nation of Israel, the princes, the priests, and the Levites have not put away from them the strange people of the land, nor the pollutions of the Gentiles, to wit of the Canaanites, Hittites, Perizzites, Jebusites, and the Moabites, Egyptians, and Edomites. For both they and their sons have married with the daughters, and the holy seed is mixed with the strange people of the land. And from the beginning of this matter, the rulers and the great men have been partakers of this iniquity. So the Lord said that these were the strange men or strange people of the land. Our people are mixing their seed with these other nations, which is not what the Lord wants us to do. It's the holy seed. We're supposed to intermingle with our people. The Lord said, when thou hast found a, let me get this precept actually. Let's get this in the book of Sirach. Salakia, chapter 26 and verse number 20. I'm gonna start verse 19. My son, keep the flower of thine age sound, and give not thy strength to strangers. When thou hast gotten a fruitful possession through all the field, sow with thy own seed, trusting in the goodness of thy stock. Who's your stock? Your stock is your kindred. It's your people. It's the Israelites for us. So the Lord said, when you found a fruitful possession among the fields, sow with thy own seed, trusting in the goodness of thy stock. So your own people, we're supposed to be with our own people, straight up and down. We're supposed to be with our own people, not with these other nations. So when we're intermingling with these other nations, that's not so much what the Lord wants, right? So our people, back to Nehemiah chapter 13, our people were intermingling with the Moabites and the Ammonites, those that were forbidden to either marry or come into the congregation, right? Now let's jump down. That's the context. Let's jump down to verse number, I'm gonna start at verse 29. It says, remember them, O my God, because they have defiled the priesthood and the covenant of the priesthood and of the Levites. Thus cleanse I them from all strangers, and appointed the wards of the priests and the Levites, everyone in his business. So now if we go again to the blue letter, let's log in. If we go back into the blue letter, and let's go to Nehemiah chapter 13 and verse number 30, you guessed it, it's going to be the same word. It's going to be Nakar, because it's what it's referencing to one that's a foreigner, one that's not of the nation of Israel. Here it is, Nakar, stranger or alien, right? Stranger or alien is one that's not of that land, region, kindred, stock, right? That would be the word Nakar, which would be referencing the three different, like I said, out of the mouth of two or three witnesses, every matter should be established. When you read Exodus 12 and 43, when you read Nehemiah 13 and verse number 30, and when you read Isaiah 60 and 10, and Isaiah 62 and 8, you can see that the stranger is one that's not of the children of Israel. Now, let's go back to Exodus chapter 12. And now we're going to touch on when the word stranger is used, how that's talking about an Israelite, right? Within the same chapter, which would be hypocritical. That wouldn't make any sense. How is one part of the chapter, verse 43, is talking about a stranger can't eat of the Passover, but then we're going to read in verse, if I'm not mistaken, 48. So let's go to Exodus 12 and let's go to verse number 48. I'm going to start at 47. It says, all the congregation of Israel shall keep it, talking about the Passover. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. Now I can't pull it up, and I was thinking about this earlier. I can't pull it up, but when you do when you go into the book of Joshua, and you're dealing with the allotments, how there was a land of Benjamin, a land of Judah, a land of Naphtali, Manasseh had multiple lands, Gad, Reuben, so on and so forth. These were their countries. These were their lands. Israel was a vast land. We're a vast nation, right? When it says as one that was born in the land, Israel can be a sojourner, one that's not part of that land. If I'm in the land of Gad, that's not my tribe. That's not technically my land that was given to me as an inheritance. Right, so I'm going to get this. Let's go back to let's go back to Exodus chapter 12, right? And let's pull this in a blue letter. So this stranger is going to be different from the car, right? That's the point. This is H1616, a stranger, which means gar, which means a sojourner or a temporary inhabitant. This is a different type of stranger than the car that we read in verse 43. So how between 5 verses not only did the word change in the definition, but the context in which the Lord is using or the law that is given also changed. One can keep the Passover, but one can't. So that wouldn't make any sense. So that's how we know that this, when you're using gar, mainly, again, context is going to supersede definition. You have to get into context, because if you see the word stranger in this gar and it's in a certain context, then we have to have that, again, 2 Timothy 2 and 15. You have to be able to rightly divide the word of truth, right? Which is why we had to lead off with that precept. So we understand that gar is talking about sojourner or a temporary inhabitant, which could be an Israelite that's temporary. Hey, listen, I got family that lives in Benjamin, and I'm from Gad, and I'm here for X amount of months. And if I'm here during the time of the Passover, then guess what I got to do? I got to keep the Passover, but me and my household, if I have males, we have to be circumcised. That's how the law works. That's how this works with the stranger. A stranger that's that's a Moabite, or that's an Edomite, or that's Ishmaelite, or an Egyptian, they're not keeping the Passover. For what? What reason they have to give the Passover? The law was given to Israel, right? That's Psalm 75 and actually, let me get that. The law was given to Israel. Everybody knows Psalm 149, right? Let me get this. I believe it's Psalm 73 and 5. The Lord established a law within Israel. Psalm 78, Psalm 78 and verse 5. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children. So the law was given to the Israelites. It wasn't given to these other nations. At a point in time, of course, all nations are going to have to keep the law. But Israel was given to law to be the light of the world, to be the kings, the priests, the generals, the princesses of the nation, of the world, and to be the ones that when they see these people, they say, surely this is a wise and understanding people. Why? Because we have the laws of the Most High God. It's not given to the heathen to be keeping. The heathen can't come to Passover. I don't want to see an Edomite at my Passover. Ishmael better not come to Pentecost. And I'll be damned if Moab is setting up a tent next to me at Tabernacles, right? So we understand that this gar is talking about an Israelite. But when you see Nakar, it's talking about an actual heathen or actual Gentile. Again, I'm going to keep saying it. Disclaimer. Context supersedes definition. So when you see the words in certain aspects, get the context, get the understanding before you just jump on it, right? So again, there's a difference between the strangers, right? Let's get a couple precepts on it. Outside Exodus 12 and 48. Let's go to Leviticus, right? Let's stay in the law. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 25. We're going to go to verse number 30. I'm going to start straight at 35, get straight to the point. It says, and if thy brother be waxen poor. So we already got the context from the jump. It's talking about who is talking about your brother. Who is your brother? Your kinfolk. One of the 12 tribes of Israel, right? And if thy brother be waxen poor and fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him. Yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. So the Lord said, you can read that. That's plain. That's black and white, straight up and down. The Lord said, if your brother waxes poor and is in decay, though he's a stranger, he might be from the land of Manasseh. You might be Benji. He might be from the land of Manasseh. He might be down bad on his luck. Guess what? He's a stranger in your land by technicality, but he's also your brother. So guess what you have to do? He has to stay with you. You have to allow him to stay with you till he gets back on his feet. Let's go. Let's go to Leviticus. Let's get in the blue letter. Leviticus 25 and verse number 35. Stranger, gar, a sojourner, a temporary inhabitant. So you see how it's pretty plain. I'll be honest with you. It's pretty plain. One is talking about actual heathen. The other is talking about an actual Israelite that can be referred to as a stranger. Because the same way, let me get this real quick. Because an Israelite, actually, I'm going to get a couple of precepts real quick. Because an Israelite can be regarded as a heathen. They can be regarded as a stranger. Even when you read, Slakia, I'm going to get a couple of precepts real quick. When you read 2nd Ezra, the second chapter, Ezra called Israel heathen. Why? Because it's about the actions. That's why Paul had to tell you, or tell our people, a Jew is not one that's outwardly, but is one that is inwardly. Why? Because it's about circumcision of the heart. It's about keeping the commandments of God, right? So when you read 2nd Ezra, I'm going to start at chapter 2, and I'm going to start at verse number 33. It says, I, Ezra, received a charge of the Lord upon Mount Oreb, that I should go unto Israel. But when I came unto them, they sat me at naught, and despised the commandment of the Lord. And therefore I say unto you, O ye heathen, that hear and understand, look for your shepherd, he shall give you everlasting rest, for he is nigh at hand, that shall come in the end of the world. So Ezra called our people heathen. Why? Because of how they are acting. The things that they're doing. You go and break the commandments of God and you live a lifestyle of sin, that makes you uncircumcised. Now you're as a heathen. That's what Christ told you in Matthew the 18th chapter. This is the book of Matthew. Let's go to Matthew chapter 18, and I'm going to go to verse number 20, right? Matthew 18, I'm going to start at 20. It says, for where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Then Peter said to him, then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I shall forgive him till 7 times? Yahushua saith unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. Slakia, it's not what I want. Slakia, that's what I want. 16. Slakia. I'm gonna start at verse 15. It says, moreover, if thy brother trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee 1 or 2 more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. So if something happens between you and your brother, there's a fallout, whatever the case is, he's got beef with you, then hey, you gotta go and make amends with that brother. If he's not hearing you, then you take a couple other people, right? If he's still not hearing you, then what the Lord say? And if he, verse 17, and if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican. So our people, they can be regarded as heathen, they can be regarded as Gentiles, they can be regarded as strangers. It's nothing new, right? But if you're out there living a lifestyle of sin, or like you read, and I believe that's Ezra 5 and verse 26, that you can get banished, then that's a little bit separate, right? But if you're coming from one land to another land for whatever reason, and you're within Israel and you're outside of your allotted land, then you will be technically a stranger in that land, right? So let's go to another one. Let's get another one real quick. Leviticus 25 and 35, we read that. We showed that that's also the word gar there. So we understand that word gar is talking about an Israelite that is a sojourner or a temporary inhabitant in another land, right? So let's go to another one real quick. Let's go to Slagia. Let's go to Zechariah. Let's go to the book of Zechariah, chapter 7. This is the book of Zechariah, chapter 7, and I'm going to start at verse number 8. Zechariah 7 and verse number 8. It says, and the word of Yahweh came unto Zechariah, saying, thus speaketh Yahweh of hosts, saying, execute true judgment, and shew mercy and compassions, every man to his brother. Verse 10, and oppress not the widow, nor the fatherless, the stranger, nor the poor, and let none of you imagine evil against his brother in your heart. So the context of this whole thing is the Lord telling Zechariah, hey, listen, you got to execute true judgment among the people, right? Priests are going off, the laws are burnt, Israel's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. You got to execute true judgment among the people. And he's saying what? Oppress not the widow, the fatherless, or the stranger. And it's talking about what? It's talking about your brother. The same thing in Leviticus 25 and 35. How if your brother waxing is poor, even if he's a stranger, you still got to bring him in. It's the same thing here that the Lord's telling Zechariah. Execute true judgment against your brother, whether he's a stranger, it's a widow, it's a fatherless. Listen, you got to execute that right judgment, right? But this word, again, we're going to continue to go through it. It's not talking about a heathen. Zechariah 7 and verse number 10. The stranger here is what? H16:16 is gar. Again, a temporary inhabitant and a sojourner, right? So straight up and down, black and white, this is not talking about one of another nation. This is not talking about a heathen. This is not talking about the Moabite that's just around the way, that's poor and is coming through trying to glean your grapes, right? This is talking about your brother that's within the land, that's from another allotment, another country, or from another tribe that just happens to be in your land. That's what it is, straight up and down, again, right? So that's talking about the stranger, right? So now we're going to transition. We're going to go into the mixed multitude, right? This won't be too long, but we know about the mixed multitude. I didn't really hear about this doctrine too much until really I came into the truth, and it's one of those it's one of them doctrines that Christians try to weaponize just to say, well, listen, there was always strangers amongst Israel, and they came into the covenant too. I heard that before. I'm sure brothers that have if you're watching this video and have been out there on the highways and byways for some time, you heard this understanding, you heard this doctrine, you heard somebody bring this out, talking about, well, listen, they came into the covenant too. When the Lord said, hey, listen, when the Israelites said all that the Lord has said we shall do, hey, the mixed multitude was right there with them. So they enter into the covenant as well. That's madness. That's madness. And we're going to explain that. Let's go to the mixed multitude, right? Let's go to the book of Exodus, chapter 12. Exodus 12 And we're going to start at verse, I'm going to start at verse 37. This will start a context as well. It says, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men besides children. Right? So this is as the children of Israel are leaving. This is after the death, that's after the Lord got off his throne, where Yahweh got off the throne, destroyed the firstborn, and then Pharaoh actually let the children of Israel go. Right? Verse 38, and a mixed multitude went up also with them in flocks and herds, even very much cattle. So this is the point where people harp on. Oh, a mixed multitude went with them as well. And they cleaved to the children of Israel. And when they cleaved to the children of Israel, that's why they got brought into the covenant. That's Christianity on crack, right? That has to be the understanding. Why? Because they don't have the proper understanding. They can't rightly divide the word of truth because they don't go precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little, right? So let's go into it. So when it's talking about the mixed multitude, yes, it's talking about those of another nation. Those, because in Egypt, it's just like Babylon to a degree. It's not just, and that's anywhere. You go to China, you go to Germany, wherever, there's other people there. So within Egypt, it's not Israel and the Egyptians. There's other nations there as well. Egypt was an empire, just like the Roman Empire was an empire at a point in time. Babylonian Empire in America is considered an empire as well. There's different ethnic groups of people within that empire or within that region or land. So in this, we can say it's the Egyptians, but it can also be other groups of people. Again, a mixed multitude. Could be a little bit of Moabites, could be a little bit of Edomites, could be some Egyptians in there, you know what I mean? So it doesn't specify, but a mixed multitude would have to be other nations that also came out with the Israelites. That's plain, right? So when they came out as well, what happened to them? Were they brought into the land of Israel? Were they part of the covenant? Did they become Jews like you read about Esther? Did they become Israelites? No, the Lord brought them out for a reason. Remember when you read the same chapter, before they left, what they do? They robbed the Egyptians. They took all their gold. Well, they only took gold when the Israelites are in the wilderness. Hey, listen, they need food, they need fire, they need wood, they need all these things, right? So let's go to this real quick. Deuteronomy 29. And bear with me for a second. I'm gonna pull the other precept I'm gonna get to. So Deuteronomy 29, and we're going to start at verse number 10. Verse number 10. I'm gonna start at 9. It says, keep therefore the words of this covenant and do them, that ye may prosper in all that ye do. This is Moses before Moses passes away and the children of Israel go into the land, right? It says, and stand this day, Slakia, ye stand this day, all of you, before Yahweh, your God, your captains of your tribes, your elders, and your officers, with all the men of Israel. So he's going to start listing the people that's there. Your little ones, your wives, and thy stranger that is in thy camp, from the hewer of thy wood unto the drawer of thy water. So the strangers that was with the children of Israel at this point in time, they're what? They're the drawer of water and they're the hewers of wood. They're their servants even while they were in the wilderness, right? And you can read about this because the same thing happened when you read Joshua, the 9th chapter. Quick precept. Joshua 9, and I'm gonna start at 21, but then I'm gonna jump down. All right. I'm gonna start at 20. It says, this we will do to them. We will even let them live, lest wrath be upon us because of the oath which we swear unto them. So you can read this whole thing for yourselves, but some heathen men from another land, well, their neighbors by technicality, their neighbors came and acted like they came from a far country, just so they can make a league with them or a covenant with them, so that the children of Israel wouldn't destroy them, because they heard about all the things that the Most High God, Yahweh, Hashem Yahushua did in Egypt for the children of Israel. When he did all those things, they heard about it and they knew they were coming to that land and they were going to claim that land. So these men acted like they're from a distant country, came to them and said, hey, look, listen, like, make a league with us, right? So the children of Israel didn't consult with Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, and guess what? They made a covenant with him. So right here, when you read, like I just read in verse number 20, this we will do to them, we will even let them live. So at this point, they found out that, listen, these dudes live right next to us. They're our neighbors. They said, we will let them live, lest wrath be upon us because of the oath which we swear, and the oath which we swear unto them. So they made a league with them. And they didn't want to break that league unless something would happen to them for making a covenant with them. So they let them live, right? Verse 21, this is the point. And the princes said unto them, let them live, but let them be hewers of wood and drawers of water unto all the congregation, as the princes had promised them. So they let them live, but guess what? They got to hew our wood and they got to draw our water. They got to be our servants. Just like they had service when they were in the wilderness, they got service in the land right now, right? Let's jump down. Verse 26, and so did he unto them and delivered them out of the hand of the children of Israel, that they slew them not. And Joshua made them that day hewers of wood and drawers of water for the congregation and for the altar of Yahweh, even unto this day, in the place which he should choose. So the mixed multitude that you read about in Exodus the 12th chapter lines up with Deuteronomy 29. Those mixed multitudes that were brought out, they were hewers of wood and they were drawers of water. They were servants unto the children of Yasha'Allah. Right? And not only that, but we're going to read this in Wisdom of Solomon, they were also destroyed. There were some of them that were also destroyed in the wilderness as well. Right? Let's get this real quick. This is the book. This is Wisdom of Solomon. Slovakia. This is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 18. And I'm going to start at verse number, I'm going to get straight to the point. This is verse number 20. It says, yea, the tasting of death touched the righteous also, and there was destruction of the multitude in the wilderness, but the wrath endured not long. So we know in the wilderness that the Lord plagued the children of Israel multiple times because of disobedience, right? You read about Miriam, read about the fiery snakes. When you read about the in Exodus, in Numbers, the 15th chapter, 16th chapter, where the damn, I can't get it out, where the earth opened up and took down Korah and his family. These things happened in the wilderness. But also there was a portion of the multitude was destroyed in the wilderness as well. So the Lord didn't bring them out so they could join a covenant. When you read in Deuteronomy, every time at the top of the chapter, for the most part, Moses is speaking, it's addressed to the children of Israel. If they're of the mixed multitude, they're not of the seed line of Israel, that automatically disincludes them. It does not include them automatically just because it's talking to the children of Israel. You can't be a Moabite, and when Moses says, "Oh, you children of Israel," that means them too. That's not what's going on. So the mixed multitude that came out, they were either destroyed or they were used as servants for the children of Israel, according to Deuteronomy 29. And then you see it paralleled when you read Joshua the 9th chapter. And the stranger that you read about can be talking about either a heathen, an actual Gentile, or it can be talking about the one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Right? But again, context is always going to supersede the definition. So when you go into the scriptures and you're reading it, like we just broke down, it's pretty plain and the definitions line up. There might be other areas or gray areas that you might go to where like, okay, well, this says this, but it can't mean that because of the context. I'll give you one example, right? And we're going to close out. Let's go to Isaiah 14, the absolute classic, right? This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 14. And we're going to start straight from the top. Let me get it over here too, real quick. And this is one of those instances that of what I'm saying. Context is always going to supersede definition. So you have to have the proper context and understanding of that verse and what it's going into before you can just jump into the definition and say, look, this is what it's saying. That's what Christians do, right? Let's read this. This is Isaiah chapter 14 and verse number 1. It says, for Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. Now, everybody, for the most part, whether you're new in this truth or a seasoned vet or elder, knows this verse. This is a classic verse. So when it's talking about the strangers here, we all know that's talking about those of the other nation. This goes right along with Isaiah the 60th chapter, like we read Isaiah 60 and 2. The sons of the stranger shall build up thy walls, right? Isaiah 49, the king shall be thy, brothers know what I'm trying to get. I'm just going to read it actually. The book of Isaiah chapter 49 and verse number 23. Slakia. It says, and kings shall be thy nursing fathers, and their queens thy nursing mothers. They shall bow down to thee with their face toward the earth, and lick up the dust of thy feet. And thou shalt know that I am Yahweh, for they shall not be ashamed that wait on me. So we know that it didn't have the word stranger, but we understand that when it comes to Isaiah 14, Isaiah 60, Isaiah 49, and 23, they're all talking about what kingdom connotation? Things that would happen to these other nations. That's the point. So when you read Isaiah 14, the strangers is clearly talking about those of another nation, just like you read Isaiah 60. But when you go into the actual definition of that word strangers, what's it read? This is the word gar. And we know the word gar is in reference or is appointed to one of the 12 tribes of Israel. So in this case, the definition might be gar, but in the context, we can understand that it's not talking about an actual Israelite. This has to be talking about what? One of another nation, a heathen, a Moabite, an Ammonite, all these nations that's going to be in chains one day, Lord willing, through the spirit and power of the Most High God. It's us that get to put them in those chains, right? But that's why I say context is going to supersede definition. So when you see Nakar, chiefly, it's talking about one of another nation. And when you read Gar, it's talking about one of the 12 tribes of Israel. But you have to be able to rightly divide the word of truth, like you read in 2 Timothy 2 and 15, and get the proper understanding. Right? And with that, I'm going to close out giving all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High God Yahweh. We do so by Shema Mashiach Wamalek Yahushai. Shalom.